And we're back once again from the Justice Department with the Attorney General of the United States, John Ashcroft. You have taken many of those 4,000 agents that you put on the police job of trying to figure out what happened on the 11th of September, and you've now put them in a more proactive posture.
We've really had to try and develop a new culture in the law enforcement community at the federal level, a culture of prevention. Now, so much of our efforts in the past, so many of them have been devoted to prosecution. We haven't forsaken that as an objective, but our priority has to be to prevent, to curtail, to disrupt, to interrupt, to keep from happening again, the kind of event that could take another 5,000 lives. And given the risks and the magnitude of the kind of injuries that we've seen, we have dedicated ourselves to making sure we do everything we can to prevent any additional episodes. We're not forsaking the prosecution, and we will prosecute and to the fullest extent of the law. But we've got to make sure that we do what we can to prevent additional terrorist acts.
You're a great supporter of the Constitution, know it well. I mean, a conservative in the best sense when it comes to constitutional protection. What you're really telling me here is that for the time being, and for as long as this threat against the United States exists, maybe we're going to have to put some of those constitutional protections aside.
No. I'm really not going to say that we'll put any constitutional protections aside, but we will exercise our full authority under the Constitution. And if we end up ruining a criminal case because we, instead of waiting to see the crime committed or withdrawing and waiting for further evidence to develop, but we warn and we interrupt, we may not be able to make a prosecution, but we'll try and make sure that we don't allow an event to transpire. So we're going to protect and honor the Constitution. I don't have the authority to set it aside. If I had the authority to set it aside, this would be a dangerous government, and I wouldn't respect it.
When you talk about directing these kinds of instruments against terrorists, I can sort of see everybody out there nodding and clucking their tongues and saying, you bet, that's what we want to do. But one of the fundamental assumptions under our system is that simply because someone is taken into jurisdiction, someone's taken into custody, doesn't automatically mean that he or she is a criminal or a terrorist. You've got 650-some people right now in custody. Some of those people have lawyers, some of those people don't have lawyers. You won't tell us, the INS won't tell us, the FBI won't tell us. To all intents and purposes, these people have disappeared into a dark hole. And yes, the father and the grandfather in me says, boy, I'm sure glad John Ashcroft is defending me and my family. The civil libertarian in me says, I'm worried that there may be some innocent people being held right now who do not have access to the kind of constitutional protection that you and I would want for ourselves. What do you say?
Well, first of all, we've detained no one that we don't charge with a violation.
Yeah, but a violation of what?
Well, some of them are violating state and local law enforcement ordinances. Right. They're detained on that basis. Some of them are violating the law when it comes to their immigration status. And while they are awaiting deportment, we think that it's important for those individuals to be detained. I think that's appropriate.
Without counsel? Without counsel?
Well, every individual has a right to counsel, and we have not deprived anyone of counsel that has sought counsel. That's fundamental. Those are rights which we believe in, which will be regarded. There are a few people that we have detained on material witness warrants. These are people that we go before a judge and we say that it's important that they be maintained, their availability be ensured, that they be detained so that they can go before a grand jury. That process is supervised by a court. It's the kind of process that's used in the criminal area, and so that all of these items are consistent with the framework of law that we operate under.
We've all grown up in what I'll call, and I think most people will understand what I'm saying, we've grown up in a sort of NYPD blue culture where we expect Andy Sipowicz to slap the bad guy around a little bit, and we're talking about fairly irrelevant crimes. To what degree are some of these people being subjected to, or to what degree do you know or want to know whether these people are being subjected to any stressful interrogation? I'll put it as gently as I can.
I don't, we don't want anyone to be subjected to interrogation that would violate their rights. And I mean by that, we don't want to extort any kind of confession. We don't believe extorted confessions are reliable. We think that when you force someone, either with physical threats or with behavior which threatens their own well-being, to speak, they're likely to tell you something that's not true. Things that aren't true aren't valuable to us. We don't engage in those kinds of practices. As a matter of fact, if I were to learn that those kinds of practices had been undertaken, and I have had no report of that, I would be very distressed and I would take action.
You understand where this kind of question comes from. If indeed your own FBI is saying right now, we have indications, we have not specific evidence, but strong indications that something is going to take place here in the United States within the next few days, and you've got some people in custody who may know something about that, it would be superhuman if someone engaging in an interrogation was not tempted to try to exert some pressure. Don't you agree? If there is a time, I mean, if there is time pressure here.
We're going to do everything we can within the limits of the Constitution and the responsibilities that we have to disrupt and prevent, to dislocate any plans for additional terrorist activities. We're not going to infringe the Constitution of the United States of America. We'll not be driven to abandon our freedoms by those who would seek to destroy them.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much. You've been most gracious, and I appreciate your time, sir.